Hello and welcome to News 18 Global with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwa. Ladies and gentlemen, our top story amid the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict, the 4-day truce has given Gazans a breather. The truce brokered to allow for the release of Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners has now ended. Experts now expect that the battle to control Gaza City will resume and last another week to 10 days. Israeli officials have been talking about a safe area at Al-Mawasi along the Mediterranean coast. However, it doesn't seem realistic for more than 2 million people who are fleeing the war zone. Now, without an agreement to deal with the civilian population and Israel's vow to destroy Hamas, the agony in Gaza persists.
Hello.
Yeah, yesterday we finally got Emily back from the hands of the Gazan terrorists. She's lost a lot of weight from her face and body, but generally doing better than we expected. We're still fighting and want Raya Rotem, Yaya's sister, Hilal's mother. We want her back. As they promised, they wouldn't release children without their mothers, but they did.
Scenes like these have been unfolding in Israel and the Palestinian territories in recent days, as more hostages are let go by Hamas in exchange for the release of more Palestinians in Israeli prisons. This Israeli government video is said to show some of the young families released on Saturday reuniting, and again on Sunday, another group was freed. 17 hostages, including a 4-year-old American girl. The temporary truce between Hamas and Israeli forces is allowing more humanitarian aid into Gaza as well, but there's also another effect. It's allowing some Gazans a moment of reflection in the ruins of what was once their home. Reuters journalists found Ibrahim Kaninch in the city of Khan Yunis, near the border with Egypt, feeding bits of cardboard into this fire outside his partially destroyed house. He's making tea. He's saying that gathering around a bonfire like this used to be an Arab tradition, particularly for Palestinians, and although the practice was lost years ago, he muses that the war has brought back some parts of Palestinian heritage. But what's next, he asks. There's no electricity or water, there's shortages of all basic human needs, no house, no shelter, no clothes, food or water. Everything is scarce. Kaninch says the occupation, referring to Israel, can destroy homes but can't destroy their right to a homeland. The war has leveled large parts of northern Gaza, such as this area of Gaza City, and forced hundreds of thousands from their homes. Negotiators from Qatar and Egypt and the United States government are pushing for the ceasefire to extend beyond its Monday deadline.
So as I was saying, the agony in Gaza continues to persist, but the impact of this war is being felt across the globe, ladies and gentlemen. Now, 3 students of Palestinian descent were shot in Burlington in Vermont. The students who attended different universities in the U.S. currently remain hospitalized with gunshot wounds. The Vermont police have arrested a suspect. The incident comes amid a rise in anti-Palestinian sentiments in the United States, with both Republican and Democrat politicians backing Israel's war in Gaza, despite the mounting Palestinian death toll and growing accusations of war crimes. The newest attack in Vermont follows the Illinois case where a 6-year-old boy, a Palestinian boy, was stabbed over 24 times by his landlord.
Police and federal agents were on Sunday hunting a gunman who shot and wounded 3 college students of Palestinian descent in Vermont in what investigators say they suspect was a hate-motivated crime. Authorities said a man with a pistol shot the 3 20-year-olds on Saturday evening on a street near the University of Vermont in Burlington and then ran away. 2 of the victims are U.S. citizens and the third is a legal U.S. resident, according to police. They added that two of the students were wearing the traditional checkered keffiyeh scarf at the time of the attack. The shooting comes amid a rise in anti-Islamic and anti-Semitic incidents reported around the United States since the latest wave of Israel-Palestinian bloodshed erupted in the Middle East on October the 7th. In a statement, Burlington's police chief said, quote, "In this charged moment, no one can look at this incident and not suspect that it may have been a hate-motivated crime." According to police, all three remained under medical care on Sunday. Two of them were in stable conditions, while one suffered, quote, "much more serious injuries." The three went to universities in different states, but were gathered in Burlington for the Thanksgiving holiday at the home of one student's family.
And let's get to our guest. I'm joined by Nirav Steinman of the International Legal Forum. Thank you, Mr. Steinman, for joining us on CNN News 18. My first question is, considering that, India has also been a victim of terror, there are a lot of charged sentiments that continue to permeate, even now for that matter, all these years after 26/11 and the continuous attacks that we face in Jammu and Kashmir. A lot of charged sentiments tend to flow through the public sphere here in India. And I'm sure it's the same thing currently in Israel as well. Now, given the fact that the global community and many voices have accused Israel of war crimes, given the death toll in Gaza, at the same time, everyone knows that the kind of action that Israel has taken was essential in order to cripple Hamas to the extent that they would even allow the release of these hostages. Just take us through the sentiments currently within Israel. Is it a mixed kind of opinion currently in Israel, or is there a unanimous message that we need to get our people back and eliminate Hamas once and for all?
Thank you for having me. Clearly, it's the latter. And let me explain why. When you think about the origins of all this, we think about two important dates, October 6th and October 7th. October 7th, there was actually the attack. October 6th, there was supposed to be peace, an agreement that had been through the last hostilities reached between Israel and Hamas through Qatar and Egypt and other brokers who attempted to reach settlements between the two parties due to prior hostilities. And when October 7th happens, there was, call it in quotes, a certain level of peace, not so wonderful peace, but nevertheless, there weren't hostilities at the border. And October 7th happens. And in Israel at the moment, there's a state of bewilderment where the universal opinion is, how did this happen? We can't believe that this actually happened on our territory, and the savagery of what had happened. So Israelis and actually Jews around the world and our friends and allies are saying that this is the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. So when you put that into perspective, the desire, I believe, of everybody in Israel is for some level of peace. Whatever how he or she may define that level of peace, there is a unification in the desire that there should be quiet. We were hoping as a country, and perhaps that was a mistake, unfortunately, and I actually feel sad that I even have to say this, that there could be what some call it, there was a containment of Hamas. We thought that Hamas was actually going to look after its people and create a quote unquote more normal type of society. But in the reports that you just talked about, the man who you interviewed, and I could hear it, but couldn't see what he said. He said that the issue was as the occupation. When I think about the use of that word occupation, it's such a false narrative because factually it's not true. Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005. There hasn't been any Israelis or any Jews living there since that time. And if it was such an occupation, or however else they might describe it, how was it possible then under the occupation for them to build up an army and armaments, a war machine, trained soldiers? What kind of occupation did we have? Clearly, Israel wasn't so good at its occupation, if the world wants to say that. Nevertheless, when we come to October 7th, we're met with a trained army. We're met with people who are gleefully exalting their savagery against other people. And we can't forget that October 7th date. And we also can't forget October 6th, the disbelief that we actually had a peace or some kind of quiet with a vicious neighbor. And we continue to ask ourselves, we speak about the attacks that happened on October 7th. They happened in an area that you must know, the settlements and the kibbutzim that surround Gaza were some of the most peace-loving people in the entire country. Furthermore, the attack that happened on, it was called a music festival or a raid. This was a peaceful, a peace celebration. These were hundreds of young people celebrating peace and doing that at the border of Gaza. So were we the fools? Perhaps we were. I mean, that re-examination of that has to come forward. And it'll come through, I can tell personally, I don't have the brain power to think about what will come next in terms of reviewing the past, like a commission of inquiry or whatever might occur. What will come next is, just moments ago, I received a notification that a representative minister of the government of Qatar has said that they're going to extend this ceasefire of sorts for another few days because Hamas has agreed to release more terrorists. There's a desperate need of humanity that Israel is seeking from the other side. Again, I'll just speak personally. What I've been hoping to hear is that people in Hamas, and this man that you interviewed, again, the blame is all on Israel. I am sorry for what he has suffered. But the blame cannot just be on the one party. He says it's because of us and because of Israel, because of this. I understand that the physical destruction of his home could have happened from Israel, but it also could have happened from a missile that fell short within the Gaza border, of which there have been hundreds, if not thousands, during this period since October 7th. I can't tell you, and I could take the blame on behalf of Israel if it did happen to him, but that's not confirmed. We will have to look at these numbers and look at this as independent third parties have always examined Israel and its acts of war under the international humanitarian law, the international laws of war, and have stated things that there's just one fact I want to give, just one fact. Under history, since this has been examined, that during a wartime, the average amount of civilians died between a combatant and civilians is 1 to 9, meaning every one combatant that is killed, 9 civilians have died. That's history around the world. That's not pertaining to Israel. But when you just look at Israel, the numbers are actually not that amount. One combatant for every 0.9 of a civilian. So it's significantly proportions different because Israel is not perfect and I'm sure has made mistakes.
Right.
I am not here to defend the mistakes, but I'm saying that in every single action that has happened, you know that there are legal experts who are with those people before they take it to ensure that they are respecting the laws of war, international humanitarian law. That's how that army operates.
Right, but Mr. Steinman, I'm sorry to interrupt,
yes.
but you know,
please interrupt.
This entire argument which comes in when it comes to discussing the Israel-Hamas conflict, no war in history has ever been proportional. I think anyone, even the Palestinian side or the Israeli side, to even debate around proportionality, it really doesn't work because, see, for me it's very simple. Israel was attacked and Israel has every right to rain hellfire on the enemy. And in that hellfire, civilians get caught. That is the nature of war. Now, what can we say? Now, my main question is, at the end of the day, now we've seen all the human shields that have been exposed by the IDF in Gaza, the entire infrastructure below hospitals, inside schools. My question remains, whenever I've interviewed people who back the Palestine side or back the Hamas side, they always have this one point that the IDF is stage managing everything, that the IDF is famous for propaganda. That's one pitch that always comes in from those who support the Palestinian side. And given all the activity on the IDF Twitter account, I mean, that's pretty much from where we've got all our information, from the IDF Twitter account, given the videos from Gaza. The criticism is that we don't believe a single bit of it. There is nothing verified. This is all propaganda. That's my first question. How do you react to that? Secondly, given the fact that Hamas was democratically elected inside Gaza, when you're fighting a terrorist organization like Hamas, can you really draw a line between Hamas and the people of Gaza, or are they one and the same?
If I may address the second question first, because the fight against, I like to say simply, the fight against Hamas is not the fight against the Palestinian people, but I will give a but in a moment. It is against the rule of Hamas as an authority over Gaza, and as well as their military infrastructure. That's clear. That's the stated goal. Hamas is also an ideology that is, I must say, is genocidal. That the only way they could have done this attack, similar to how the Nazis did, is that they dehumanize Jews. They don't see Jews as people, and there is an issue there because Hamas then is that idea. That idea has been in their educational system. There's all this proof. I mean, you can look at their own media, if you want to call it propaganda, look at their own media that shows how the education in kindergartens and their summer camps, this is stuff that they proudly say that they teach children to grow up to murder Jews. They're not talking about murdering Israelis. They're talking about murdering Jews. So there is that genocidal pact that is given from, I don't know, the age of birth. That's the part that's the most troubling to me as a human. And I think that's the disconnect. I think that we try to believe that there is a moral equivalency across all races and people and religions. But I don't see that to be true. I don't see that the problem of Hamas is simply the problem of their government and the people. I think it's that ideology that's inculcated within the people that needs to be changed. That'll take time. But if I look about India, if you had your neighbor Pakistan had learned that they're teaching their children from the youngest age possible that the goal of everybody is to be a martyr so that they kill Indian Hindus, right? It's not a territorial issue. It's not, I want to take over the land. I want to murder these people. You would have the same issue. Every country would have the same issue. So the change is going to what comes next, if that's the question, what comes next then is how do we re-educate a whole population of people to say that, no, we actually want to live side by side with you. And by the way, the people who did live side by side with you, the people who you did attack and kill, were the ones who were working their entire lives to try and build this rapport. Those are the issues that are so fundamentally ingrained into them that they dehumanizes us because we're Jews, and they try to do that they can to try to annihilate us. That's the understanding. I do not want anyone to see this as a war against the Palestinian people. I do not agree with that, and I don't believe anybody in Israel believes that. However, there is, and this is the largest but in the whole equation, is that there must be a way for them to understand that we want to live together, but we can't live with you trying to dehumanize us and try to murder us. We have always done what we can to protect humans. Now, when you turn to the IDF and they call it propaganda, it goes to the same theme. It's that they do not want us there. They do not want us as Jews on land next to them. They're not asking for the 1967 borders so that we could then build a state and move back to the 1967 borders, which is what the Palestinian Authority likes to say. But before 1967, when we were in those borders, they were attacking us also. So it's the presence that we have on the land, which is the biggest issue for them. And then the only way to change that is going to be to retrain and re-educate people on a system that would be approved by the world. It doesn't have to be Israel approving it, but let us not have children that are taught from the youngest age possible to hate another person because of their religion. You don't accept that in your country. Why
Absolutely.
do we have to accept that? So that to me is there's a humanity issue that needs to be addressed. I hope and pray that everything that I see from the IDF with respect to and I am a lawyer who works in international law. My prayers are twofold. One, that everything I understand is supposed to happen is actually happening. And I know that to be the case, that sorry for the lawyers to being involved, but that the lawyers do get involved and say, you cannot do X, Y, or Z.
Right.
On top of that, I also hope that on their side, they have people who stand up and say, we want to live normally. We want to see you as humans, and we don't want this genocidal, savage bestiality to maintain this rule of terror over us. Let us live our lives.
Right.
I would like that to happen.
Right, and that would be the case in an ideal world, Mr. Steinman, but war is very ugly business at the end of the day. But thank you for sharing
Yes,
your perspective, Native Steinman of the International Legal Forum.